Hi, welcome back. This is Deborah Peters, and this is my podcast and vlog, Neuroscience for Success, with my new series, The Journey of the Mastery of Your Mind, and my co-host, Richard Daniel Curtis. Say hello.
Hello.
So we've been, we have a program that we have outlined for weeks and weeks and weeks of material. And, but every once in a while, both of us, and this morning it was me, I got this huge inspiration about what we should cover today. And so we're going to change it up a little bit, but I think it's very timely. And what we're going to talk about is, how to not be so hard on yourself. I think most people suffer from self-deprecation and negative self-talk. Wouldn't you agree, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. And the trouble is the way our brains are wired is just a little bit malicious. That kind of acts against you, because what happens is you then end up focusing on those negative things, and then it makes you feel worse about other things. And if you can't do this, then you can't do that, and it goes around in a big circle. It can really be catch-22, and it's so hard to get out of sometimes.
Absolutely, and even just being aware that you're doing it to yourself, because if you've come from, like for me, I came from generations of self-deprecators, where criticism was a form of love, and being hard on yourself was, was kind of seen like, I guess that's, it was like seen as being humble or something. I don't know, maybe that's where the whole martyr idea was carried through in our family, and it really doesn't produce anything good. I had this client who was a high-level executive at Merrill Lynch, and I worked with him for a while, and finally one day I just kind of like sat him down and I said, look, you cannot browbeat yourself into success. I mean, yeah, you can achieve a certain amount, but if that's your method of getting yourself to achieve and succeed, it ends up just destroying you.
I see it all the time, and I see it with adults, I see it with children, where actually what happens is you get onto a self-doubt loop, where actually you think, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to do this, or I feel second best, or I always, and the worst is when you do self-fulfilling prophecies. So I always lose at races generally means that you're going to lose at races, because that's your internal belief, because you're in that negative cycle. I always muck things up. If you're telling yourself that, oh, I'll never get things right, then actually what's going to happen there is you're going to end up not getting things right, because that's your frame of mind. And it all comes round, and this negative mindset, the negative, I'm going to say the self-judging, is such a vicious circle.
Yes, and what we say outwardly, like from a coaching perspective, or even anyone that's done any personal development work or studied any human behavioral classes, you'll know that what people say is actually a reflection of what they're saying to themselves inside. And so when people are coming out with negative comments, I can't imagine what's going on the inside. One night I was in the gym and this lady forgot something, and she's like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. And I couldn't help myself. I'm like, don't say that. And she looked at me like, who are you? And I'm like, be nice to yourself. And she goes, yeah, but I forgot blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's okay. Be nice to yourself, because if you want to remember something, those little signs they have, like, don't fall or don't forget or whatever. It's like, no, you need to command yourself in a good way. So remember to XYZ, or, instead of, caution, you might fall. How about, keep an eye on your step, like something that goes toward the positive, because that's what's going to shift your relationship with yourself. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it starts in childhood and it comes through when you're an adult. So when you're a parent, and you can speak to this, when you're a parent, however you're parenting your children is how you got parented, whether you realize it or not. And so then the cycle just continues, but somebody's got to break the cycle. Someone has to be the pioneer in the family that says, enough. I'm creating a new paradigm in this family, and I'm going to parent and lead from a higher level perspective, from a positive self-talk plane. Yeah?
Exactly. And this is what happens. And so it's part and parcel of the subconscious values that get passed to us from our parents, and you know, in turn it came from our grandparents, and it came from their parents, and all the rest of it. And you know, it's a bit like what I was talking about with I'm sure I was talking about one of the other vlogs that we did about, you know, making sure that you eat everything on a plate, because actually it's all about those subconscious messages that you get. So things like, oh, you're such an idiot, and all of those sorts of things. Oh, it's funny at the time, but actually no, it's not, because that's then programming these self-limiting beliefs that then, you know, are just a huge, great big wall to overcome in the future. Whereas actually, if you stop them at the beginning, then it's so much better. Another example that I've been reading about recently is about health, and about sort of the way that we talk to other people about, especially children, about injuries, because the body's really good at healing.
Yeah.
The trouble is we are very much indoctrinated from childhood that actually, when we're ill, we need to take pills, or we need to take medicine, we need to take Calpol or something like that. Now, actually, that's really bad, because so often when we get ill, when we've got the cold or flu or something like that, the body's got enough antibodies in itself to heal itself. So we
Yeah.
don't need to do all those extra things, but it's because we've been conditioned to think that way. That's when we then stock up on flu tablets and night nurse and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, and you know, I want to actually do a few vlogs on health and fitness. You know, I'm a former gym owner, former gym rat, still a gym rat. You know, I'm there on a pretty much daily basis. It's my addiction, and it's an awesome addiction. You know, yesterday I did not leave my desk. I sat in front of my computer for hours because I had to knock out a project. In fact, I launched my book. So I'm gonna add a link to our YouTube channel so people can just click on that link and get a copy. So I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then finally at the end of the day, yeah, I felt this dip in my energy, and I really didn't want to go to the gym, but I took myself there anyway, and I said, you know, just go for a little while. Like, even if you walk through the door and do a set of sit-ups, 10 minutes later you walk back out, you've done something physical. I had to do something physical. So halfway through my workout, I'm like, wow, I feel so good. You know, I have this like tremendous shift. So we'll do a whole podcast and vlog on that. But I want to come back to this idea of not being so hard on yourself, and actually, instead of beating yourself up for something that doesn't go right, or this idea of perfectionism. So the way I was raised was that everything had to look good, had to look perfect. And so when, you know, the neighbors came, or people came over to visit, or we hosted a party, everything had to look awesome, including us. But on the inside, we were a mess. And so, you know, that's a compensation. This idea of perfectionism, you have to be at a certain place in order to be more, have more, do more, is so not true. And if you buy into this idea that you have to be perfect, like you've got to be, you know, skinny or wealthy or whatever, you know, drive this certain car, live in this certain zip code, or have this certain watch, or whatever your story is, in order for something else in your life to happen, it's a lie. And it's programming that comes, you know, not just from and I know we've talked a lot about parenting here because you're the parent coach, or the kid calmer actually, which is kind of the same thing. Um, so I want to preface it by saying, you know, our parents do the best they can. I'm a parent. I always thought all my life I was the worst parent on the planet. And one day I just said to myself, are you kidding me? Look what you worked with. Look at what you came from. And, you know, look at, like, I had a child when I was 15 and I finished school and went to college and became a serial entrepreneur. And so I look back on that and I'm like, yeah, okay, I wasn't perfect, but I was really awesome because I introduced my child to the idea of being a thinker. You know, I created a thinker in my child, not a follower. So getting to this place in yourself that you don't have to be perfect. First of all, perfect doesn't exist. And so you're shooting for something that isn't even a reality. It's not even a thing. And just be kind to yourself along the process of life, you know, especially teenagers, right? I think they're the hardest on themselves of anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is with what happens during adolescence, what happens through puberty, is that actually the frontal part of the brain, where our personality is, where our judgment is, where our conscience is, actually shuts down for a few years. And so with teenagers, the reason it's so much amplified is that on top of all the changes that are happening in their body with the hormones and the rest of it, actually the brain again is conspiring against them. Your brain is, and this is where you need to rely on your mind a lot more than your brain, because your brain conspires against you. And so it just shuts down those frontal lobes where your conscience is. And so the conscience, obviously, we use to, you know, to stop the judgmental voices in our heads. When, you know, when we haven't got that conscience operating fully, then those judgmental voices are going to be a heck of a lot louder.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we're all pretty aware, I think, that we come into the world, you know, kind of like a clean slate, if you will, and very conscious, very connected to the divine, or, you know, the quantum field or God or whatever your word is. And then through our programming and conditioning, we forget. We forget that we're that connected. We forget that we let go of our imagination. It's almost like our imagination gets programmed out of us. So I like the idea of teaching kids how to meditate, and they can do it in 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even have to be a long thing, just to keep the connection alive, so that whatever the programming and conditioning is, whatever your environment is, you know, I've worked with a lot of kids that have come out of abusive environments, and so they've big time forgotten their connection. And the healing takes place when they rediscover that connection and they foster it. So imagine if we as parents taught our children to meditate from the get-go. And you can teach a toddler, like 3-4 years old, they get it like that, you know. Then all of these executives that I'm working with that are struggling against themselves wouldn't be. So I could work with them on a higher level instead of on a healing level.
Yeah.
You know, the performance, it just raises the performance factor within you as a human being. And then this idea of struggling and achieving anything is hard kind of gets thrown out the window, because achieving is not hard at all. What you're seeking is seeking you. So whatever goal, whatever objective, whatever wealth goal, whatever health goal, whatever love goal, whatever travel goal, whatever it is for you, it's seeking you. You got to get into a place of allowing.
Absolutely. It always comes back to us. That's the thing. It's all of this, everything we talk about, and in terms of business growth, in terms of personal growth, it always comes back to us. And I mean, that's the key concept of the I method. Is that actually it is about us. And it's about letting being in a place where actually you let that happen, you let that flow happen in your life.
Yeah, allowing. That's the key.
Yeah.
So what happens is, from a neuroscience perspective, is we build up resistance. So when there's like a negative self-talk, when there's any sort of emotional denial, I've experienced this a lot with clients where, let's say they're on a spiritual path and they're taking classes, or maybe they've joined a church or something, and they're like, I'm not supposed to be angry. I'm not supposed to feel sad. Like I'm just going to override this feeling. And I'm like, if you override that and you deny that, then you're just causing more problems for yourself. And so acknowledging what it is, but not succumbing to it, that's the key. And then connecting to something positive. However, there's a caveat. You connect to something positive, emotion, thought pattern, one of those two, right? But not to cover up that negative emotion or limiting belief that you've discovered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a teenager, it's like, wow, imagine, and I know your program does this, it helps them understand what they're experiencing so that whatever they're experiencing mentally and emotionally doesn't consume their reality or picture of themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then with an adult, like my executive that was browbeating himself into success, guess why? It was his father's voice in his head. He's a little boy, like if we look at some great accomplished people in the world, we can probably name lots. I can think of a really high level golf pro that, his life blew up with scandal. And why did that happen? Well, if we look back at his programming and conditioning, his father browbeat him, and maybe more, into that career and into that performance. And that programming could have been done so differently, and the results could have been the same level of greatness without all the baggage. Imagine that.
Exactly. It's so true. It's so true. And that's all to do with this subconscious, these subconscious values that are passed from generation to generation. And actually, I see it so often where actually we as parents start trying to put right the wrongs that happened in our childhood through our children.
Yeah.
A classic example of that is a parent's relationship with their child's school. That is so often based on their experience of school when they were a child.
Yeah. I have someone in my life right now that the entire driver. So you're talking about values, right? So when we work with companies, the first thing we do is we do a value solicitation. And even if the company says to me, we already know our values, like we've already done all this, I insist on doing it again.
Yeah.
The way I do it is it really helps them get clarity on what drives them. And so every value has a driver behind it. And the driver is either an away from pain or a toward pleasure. If it's an away from pain, you're going to be doing the work and you're going to be going through the steps of the goal acquisition, but it's to get away from a feeling you don't want. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like swimming upstream. It's like swimming against the current of life. Can you reach the destination and achieve the goal? Yeah, sure, why not? Of course you can. But you're going to beat yourself up in the process. I mean, look at any salmon that swims upstream and they're they're bruised to hell, you know? And that's what you're gonna look like and feel like. But if you're moving towards pleasure, which is probably the same goal, you know, if the goal is to have, like, let's say the goal is a 7-figure plus income, you can either swim upstream, beating yourself up about what's wrong with you and how hard it is and how you're not good enough and blah, 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 and be beat up when you hit that 7 figures. And you can look around and you can see a lot of people, by just the way their body has manifested and their face has manifested, that's how they got to where they are. And which is why, you know, the most common time for heart attacks is 8 a.m. on Monday morning, right? Oh my God, now I've got to go back at her again. Or you can move toward pleasure. You can move toward the joy of that acquisition, and you're swimming downstream. You're swimming with the current. The steps are the same. The goal's the same. But when you get there, you're happy. You're happy. You're not bruised and beaten and, you know, worn out at the end of it. And so, you know, I have someone in my life that everything he does is about making up for what his parents didn't have. And it's like, wow, give it a rest. They had their journey.
Yeah.
They had their path, and that's not your journey.
Definitely. And I think we've gone over time again, so I think that's a good point to end it.
It is a good point. And you know what? I just have so much more to say, but
I know. We'll do that. We'll think about it in the next episode, because I've got loads more to say as well on this. This is the point that we'll pick it up in the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the beauty of how you and I connect. It's just like, it rolls. Like, for all of our listeners, thank you for being a part of our tribe, and for all the wonderful feedback that we're getting and the shares. You know, I've been putting these posts out on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and I'm seeing all these shares where people are sharing them with their tribe. And I got a message from a fellow, actually he's kind of in your neck of the woods. He's over in the UK, and he's like, I'm hooked, I'm a follower. And I have like 30,000 people in my Twitter. Let me tweet for you. And I'm like, wow, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Absolutely.
This is what we're meant to do. And this is like the biggest joy in my life. So I feel really blessed to work with you, Richard, and to have this message go out across the ethers, and for all of the folks that are jumping on board with us. Keep sharing, keep liking, keep subscribing, and thank you. And we'd love to have your comments, because we want to cover whatever you're dealing with in your life that you can't seem to find an answer to. You send us a comment and we'll create a show around that so that we can help you. So
excellent.
God bless. Yeah, God bless. So what's your one?
My one today.
Yeah.
Recognize what is your value and what's someone else's value.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So my one is take some time every day for yourself to just do some creative thinking. And it doesn't have to be a long period of time. Just even if you go for a walk outdoors and don't have any music on, don't look at your phone, just give yourself 15, 20 minutes and just do some creative thinking. So, yeah, love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.